Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a video. And if this one helps you out, a like goes a long way for us. Let's get into it. The average household throws away somewhere between $150 and $200 worth of food every single month. That's not because people are careless or wasteful by nature. It's mostly because the food went bad before it got used. And a significant portion of the time, the reason it went bad had nothing to do with how fresh it was when you bought it. It went bad because of how it was stored. Today we're going through 15 foods that most households are storing incorrectly, what the right method actually is, and what fixing each one is worth to you over the course of a year. Some of these are going to be things you've been doing your entire life without realizing they were costing you money every single week. Number 1, tomatoes. The refrigerator is the worst place to store a tomato, and most people store them there by default. Cold temperatures halt the ripening process and break down the compounds that give tomatoes their flavor, which is why a refrigerated tomato tastes bland and develops a mealy, soft texture within days. Whole, uncut tomatoes should be kept at room temperature, stem side down, to prevent moisture loss through the stem end, away from direct sunlight. Only refrigerate a tomato once it has been cut, and even then bring it back to room temperature before eating for the best flavor. Households that buy tomatoes weekly and throw away softened, flavorless ones regularly waste around $40 to $60 a year on tomatoes alone. Number 2, bread. Bread stored in the refrigerator goes stale faster than bread kept at room temperature, not slower. The cold temperature accelerates a process called starch retrogradation, where the starch molecules in the bread recrystallize and the texture turns dry and crumbly significantly faster than at room temperature. Bread should be kept in a sealed bag or bread box at room temperature and consumed within 3 to 5 days. If you can't finish a loaf in that time, slice it and freeze it. Frozen bread toasts directly from frozen in minutes and tastes completely fresh. A household buying a loaf a week and regularly throwing away the stale end wastes $30 to $50 a year on bread that proper storage would have preserved. Number 3, fresh herbs. Fresh herbs like parsley, cilantro, and basil are one of the most frequently wasted items in any fridge. Thrown loosely into the crisper drawer, they wilt within 2 to 3 days. The right method is to treat them like cut flowers. Trim the stems, place them upright in a glass with an inch of water, and cover loosely with a plastic bag. Stored this way in the fridge, most fresh herbs stay fresh for up to 2 weeks. Basil is the exception. It hates cold and should be kept in a glass of water at room temperature away from direct sun. Fresh herb bunches cost $2 to $4 each. Households that buy them weekly and throw away half waste over $80 a year on herbs that never make it into a meal. Number 4, berries. Berries go moldy fast in the fridge because of the moisture sitting on their surface and the natural yeasts and mold spores already present when you bring them home. The fix is a quick vinegar rinse. 1 part white vinegar to 3 parts water, soak for a minute, rinse thoroughly with cold water, then dry completely before refrigerating. The vinegar kills the mold spores on the surface without affecting the flavor once rinsed. Store them in a container lined with paper towels to absorb any remaining moisture and leave the lid slightly open for airflow. Berries at $4 to $6 per punnet going moldy within 2 days represents one of the most expensive food waste habits in the average household. Easily $100 or more a year for families who buy them regularly. Number 5, avocados. The most common avocado mistake is cutting one, using half, and watching the other half turn brown within hours. The solution is to leave the pit in the unused half, apply a thin layer of lemon or lime juice to the exposed flesh, press plastic wrap directly onto the surface with no air gap, and refrigerate. This dramatically slows oxidation and keeps the flesh green and usable for an extra 2 to 3 days. For whole, unripe avocados, keep them at room temperature to ripen. They should only go into the fridge once fully ripe to extend their usable window by several days. At $2 to $3 each, avocados thrown away half used or overripe add up to $40 to $60 a year in avoidable waste. Number 6, leafy greens. Spinach, rocket, mixed leaves, and similar greens wilt within days when stored loosely in their original bag because of the moisture that builds up inside. The correct method is to open the bag, lay a sheet of paper towel inside against the greens, and reseal. The paper towel absorbs the excess moisture that accelerates wilting and bacterial growth. For loose greens you've already washed, dry them as thoroughly as possible before refrigerating. Wet greens wilt significantly faster than dry dry ones. Bag salads and loose greens at $3 to $5 a bag, going soft and slimy before they're used, cost households $60 to $90 a year in wasted produce. Number 7, onions and garlic. Both onions and garlic are commonly stored in the same bowl in the kitchen, often near the stove. The heat and light from the stove accelerates sprouting and spoiling, and storing onions and garlic together causes them to deteriorate faster because of the moisture and gases each releases. They should be stored separately, in a cool, dark place with good airflow, a ventilated basket or paper bag in a cupboard away from heat sources. Never store them in sealed plastic bags, as trapped moisture causes them to rot from the inside. Onions and garlic that sprout or go soft before use represent $20 to $30 a year in wasted basics that form the foundation of most home cooking. Number 8, potatoes. Potatoes stored in the refrigerator undergo a chemical change where the cold temperature converts their starch into sugar, altering the flavor, darkening the flesh when cooked, and producing higher levels of acrylamide when fried or roasted. They should be stored in a cool, dark, well-ventilated place. A paper bag or a basket in a dark cupboard is ideal. Keep them away from onions, as both release gases that accelerate each other's spoilage, and away from any light source which triggers greening. Potatoes that go soft, sprout, or green prematurely cost households $20 to $40 a year, depending on how frequently they're bought. Number 9, cheese. Storing cheese wrapped in plastic is one of the most common mistakes in any fridge. Plastic traps moisture against the surface of the cheese, which creates the ideal environment for unwanted mold, while simultaneously suffocating the beneficial bacteria in aged cheeses and altering their flavor. Cheese should be wrapped in wax paper or parchment paper and stored in the crisper drawer where humidity is more stable. For soft cheeses, store in an airtight container after wrapping. Cheese thrown away due to mold or texture changes from improper storage represents $30 to $50 a year in waste for households that keep a regular selection. Number 10, coffee. Storing coffee in the freezer is a widely repeated piece of advice that actually does more harm than good for everyday use. Each time you take the container out of the freezer and open it, condensation forms inside and moisture degrades the coffee grounds rapidly. Coffee should be stored in an airtight, opaque container at room temperature, away from heat sources like the stove and away from direct sunlight. Only freeze coffee if you're storing a large bulk supply you won't access for weeks at a time. And in that case, portion it before freezing so you never open the full container repeatedly. Coffee stored improperly and going stale faster than it should costs households $20 to $40 a year, depending on how much is regularly purchased. Number 11, mushrooms. Mushrooms stored in a plastic bag or their original plastic packaging sweat heavily in the fridge, and the trapped moisture turns them slimy within 2 days. Mushrooms need to breathe. Store them in a paper bag or in a bowl covered loosely with a paper towel in the fridge. The paper absorbs the moisture they release and prevents the buildup that causes them to deteriorate so quickly. Don't wash mushrooms until right before using them. Wet mushrooms stored in the fridge go bad significantly faster than dry ones. At $3 to $5 a pack, mushrooms going slimy 2 days after purchase represents $30 to $50 a year in wasted food. Number 12, nuts and seeds. Most people store nuts and seeds in the pantry indefinitely, not realizing they have a relatively short shelf life at room temperature. The natural oils in nuts oxidize when exposed to air and warmth, causing them to go rancid, a process that can happen within a few months at room temperature, but takes well over a year in the freezer. Nuts and seeds should be stored in airtight containers in the fridge for short-term use or the freezer for long-term storage. They don't need to be defrosted before eating and taste completely normal straight from frozen. Nuts bought in bulk and going rancid before being finished cost households $20 to $40 a year in product thrown away or eaten past its best. Number 13, eggs. The built-in egg holders on the fridge door are actually one of the worst places to store eggs. The door is the warmest part of the fridge and experiences the most temperature fluctuation every time the door opens and closes, which causes eggs to age faster. Eggs should be stored in their original carton toward the back of the fridge where the temperature is coldest and most consistent. The carton also prevents them from absorbing the odors of other foods in the fridge through the porous shell. Eggs stored on the door and used past their best quality represent a smaller but consistent waste of $15 to $25 a year for households that go through them regularly. Number 14, fresh meat. Meat stored in its original supermarket packaging and left in the fridge past 1 to 2 days is a significant waste risk because the packaging is not airtight and allows bacteria to develop faster than necessary. If you're not using fresh meat within a day of buying it, transfer it immediately to a proper airtight freezer bag, remove as much air as possible, and freeze it. It defrosts overnight in the fridge with no quality loss, and you eliminate the risk of it going off before you get to it. Meat thrown away because it went off in the fridge before being used is one of the most expensive food waste habits. Easily $80 to $120 a year for a household that regularly buys fresh meat. Number 15, bananas. Bananas stored in a bunch ripen significantly faster because they release ethylene gas, and keeping them together concentrates that gas around all of them simultaneously. Separate bananas from the bunch when you bring them home to slow the ripening process. Keep them away from other fruits, which are also sensitive to ethylene. If bananas ripen faster than you can eat them, peel and freeze them immediately. Frozen bananas are perfect for smoothies and baking and keep for months with no waste at all. Bananas regularly going overripe and being thrown away rather than frozen represents $15 to $25 a year in straightforward avoidable waste. Now for the annual savings. When you add up the value of the food that better storage prevents from going to waste across all 15 items, tomatoes, bread, herbs, berries, avocados, leafy greens, onions and garlic, potatoes, cheese, coffee, mushrooms, nuts, eggs, meat, and bananas, the conservative total comes to somewhere between $500 and $700 a year for the average household. That's money you already spent at the grocery store that you're currently throwing in the bin. No extra purchases, no new habits beyond changing where and how you put things away when you get home. The fix for most of these takes 30 seconds, and the savings are ongoing every single week from that point forward. Drop a comment with which one surprised you most. We read every single one. And if you want us to do a full video on reducing food waste more broadly, or a meal planning video that builds on exactly what we covered today, let us know below. Hit the like button if this was useful, subscribe and tap the bell if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.